Welcome to Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 29, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Little.
This time, from salted fish to frozen heads, humanity's been on a millennia-long mission to outwit rot, ruin, and forgetfulness while maybe achieving an immortality of sorts.
That feels like a haiku with extra words.
The unrotten truth, our endless war against time and decay, up next.
I feel like I am actively trying to fight time and decay, but just on my own body is really where I'm at right now.
Is there any space at your house that's being used as any type of museum currently?
I really don't want to answer that question. Did my wife put you up to this? Why? I think the better question is, what space in your house is not being used currently as a museum? I feel like there's just a lot of shit on display at my house of things.
I'm hoping that's not the case for me. What weird things do you save and why?
I really don't want to save things. I mainly save like electronic parts. Like I laugh at my kids because they'll see some piece of dead electronics somewhere. My oldest son will be like, well, Daddy, there's still parts on that are good, right? You can store those for future projects. I'm like,
Sure.
Like I'll just take it apart and just like any motors, any sort of thing that I think I could use in some other thing later. It's terrible.
Few things make me as happy as getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, I here's the thing. I like getting rid of stuff. I don't like the process of getting rid of stuff. That's the problem.
I actively like the process. By the way, with my father passing, I'm reminded of how much my mother is the most sensible person on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
She literally, within a few days of his passing, cleaned out his closet and all of his things, gave away to people who could make use of them, things that he had owned. He's not coming back. Yeah. She also did not want his ashes, which I think shocks a lot of people. But in her mind, can they hold my hand in the movies? Can they kiss me at midnight on New Year's? Yeah. Can they tell me a story about when we first met? No, I don't think so. I have no need for them.
Yeah, I think it's more interesting to take those remains, especially like ashes, and do something with it that's constructive. Like they have these urns you can plant a tree in.
But if you don't get cremated, you and I are going to have this. We've had this discussion many times. I think cremating uses a ton of energy to get rid of the last things you have that you could actually give to the earth of value.
Well, I'm still hoping to give my Beanie Baby collection away. It's a value. Give that to the earth.
Still collecting those, are you?
Dear Earth. Just waiting.
You got the new limited edition ones?
They're going to bottom out. I had to choose between Beanie Babies and crypto, and I'm pretty sure I made the right choice.
Okay, Defying Decay, humanity's quest for eternal everything. Let's go. People keep the strangest things. Yeah. Give us a shelf and we'll fill it with something to display.
Man, if that ain't the truth.
What do you think of when you think of a shelf for display? What do you picture?
I mean, this is fascinating because it does seem like most people will just keep, they won't keep everything, but they'll keep everything of something. I find this fascinating whenever I stumble into an estate sale, which is pretty rare. But when I stumbled into one, I was just like, oh, you were the person that kept the whatever, insert the thing here, right? It could be like tin plates that were painted by hand in the 1800s. That's just like the thing that they started collecting, or bottle openers, or whatever it is.
We found old movies that we didn't know we still had copies of in existence.
Because people just collected
people's basements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody had just collected this.
I mean, you'll see like train cars. Of course, I always make the joke about Beanie Babies. I find it interesting. This is probably one of the ones that breaks my brain the most, is like Lego models. And my wife's like, what do you do if you put them together? I'm like, you put another one together. She's like, but what do you do with the one you put together? I'm like, you put it on a shelf. She's like, why? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So it can collect
dust, so it's really hard to clean.
So you can dust it, exactly. I'm like,
and then you can be sad when it falls and breaks.
But they have really cool lighting kits that you can get on eBay to light them up. or sorry, on Amazon. You can get really cool lighting kits on Amazon that you can light them up. And she's like, yeah, but then what? And I'm like, I don't think you understand. I don't think you get the point.
There are people who are just wired like this. There are some weird museums around the world. And some of these are absolutely incredible. There's one in Kansas that is literally the Barbed Wire Museum.
The barbed wire. So they've got like hundreds of different types of barbed wire?
In La Crosse, Kansas, the museum is dedicated entirely to barbed wire. It displays 2,400 different types of barbed wire.
2,400?
Oh, yeah. Telling the story of its impact on the American frontier. You don't know how valuable barbed wire has been in creating this country.
There aren't that many color swatches at Home Depot. How do they get 2,400 different types of barbed wire? Are they different sharpnesses, different barbed lengths? Like, I don't understand how you...
I have no idea. I've not been to the museum, but if I'm ever in La Crosse, Kansas, that's the first place I'm swinging by.
If you asked me to guess the over-under on this and draw a line in the middle where half the people would say less and half the people would say more, and let's just exclude the state of Kansas, because what else do they have than barbed wire?
Yeah.
I would say the line would be like 13.
Yeah.
Right? Or like maybe like 30, but certainly not in the hundreds or thousands. 2,400 types of barbed wire. I now desperately want to go see this. This feels like a place we need to go see.
Think of all the things that we were able to do when we were able to put up some sort of fences easily. And barbed wire is much easier than putting up a wooden fence.
Sure.
Putting up barbed wire fence to keep in animals and keep out people and all, all those sorts of things. It's amazing.
Look, I didn't wake up today thinking that I was going to say to you and all our listeners that I am, quote, pro barbed wire, because I am. I'm not anti barbed wire, but 2,400? Like what did the other 2,399 not do that somebody had to make a 2,400? What was it?
They just weren't good enough.
What was the thing where the guy's like, well, look, I know there's a couple thousand barbed wires. We can do better.
WD-40 got it in 40 tries. Why couldn't they have gotten this, at least in 50 tries?
Fish oil.
There's an international cryptozoology museum in Portland, Maine.
So these are all animals that are on the
study
on the
of
ledger.
The study of hidden animals, featuring exhibits on Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, the Abominable Snowman.
Okay.
You get the idea.
Sure. Okay. So it's about as real and important to long tail society as the other crypto that we talk about. So great. So it's
these are big stories that we have told for years for some reason. There's some reason those stories have been perpetuated.
Oh yeah, people want to believe. I've seen the X-Files. Come on.
You're gonna like this one. This is the British Lawnmower Museum.
No, this
in
is
Southport, England.
No, this is fake. There's no way.
Vast collection of antique and modern lawnmowers.
Do the British lawnmowers drive on the left?
Yes, they do.
I've always wondered.
Tracing the history of lawn care, even including lawnmowers once owned by celebrities.
That is such a British thing. Like, if you're going to have a lawnmower museum anywhere, I feel like it should be in Britain. That is incredible. And they have lawnmowers once owned by celebrities?
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what would be different about their lawnmowers.
It's like when you can go to the Peterson and you can see the car that Elvis shot. Is it like that?
Yeah,
is it like,
I'm sure.
You can see.
I haven't been. I have not stopped by Southport, England to look at the lawnmowers.
Here's the one where Prince Charles used to cut his back lawn. Like, what? No. What am I looking at? That's incredible.
Sulba International Museum of Toilets.
Oh, yeah.
Found in Delhi, India. Museum traces the history of sanitation and toilets from 2500 BCE to the present day, featuring various commodes and commode-related artifacts.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm no longer allowed in that museum. I didn't appreciate the line between the exhibits and the functional toilets.
Sure.
So
they should mark that clearly. They should make signs.
Yeah, they frown upon me. I've only been kicked out of one casino and museum in my life, and it happens to be this one, unfortunately. The irony that the Museum of Toilets is found in India, I think, is fascinating to me. The fact
because
that
they just have holes in the ground.
Usually, it's holes. I think holes in the ground. I'm sure I'm gonna get some angry hate mail from our Indian listeners, but I feel like it's more of an aspirational museum where they're just like, I don't understand. How do I stand on this thing?
This one I love. It's the Museum of Broken Relationships.
Oh yeah.
With a permanent home in Zagreb, Croatia, and exhibits on tour around the world, this museum showcases personal objects left over from dissolved relationships, accompanied by short stories.
That's kind of awesome. I love the things people just, I'm not going back for this. Whatever. It's a hairdryer. Yeah. I'm not going back. Here's the restraining order section. I'm like, you kind of missed the point of the museum, Jeff. That's not really what they were looking for here.
But it tours with short stories.
You just read the TRO in some sort of iambic pentameter. Words are hard.
And finally, there's a bunch more. But finally, for our purposes, is the Icelandic Phaleological Museum, the Penis Museum in Reykjavik, Iceland.
Oh, yeah.
It houses a collection of penises and penile parts belonging to land and sea mammals found in Iceland, from whales to hamsters, and even a folklore section. I think you're there.
Yeah. So, truthfully, on all of these, I joke about the Indian Museum of Toilets. This is the only museum on this list that I've actually been to in Reykjavik. Is this one? I've actually been to the Penis Museum. It's kind of awesome. It's a museum of just penises. I feel like it came out of a night of drinking.
Sure.
Where someone's like, you know what we should do? We need a penis museum. And they're like, well, why not? And then the next day somebody got a lease and it got real. And they're just like, all right, now we're collecting penises.
No, going back now.
Yeah.
When you go into the cafe that's attached to the museum, you can get the salty and savory penis waffles.
Oh, good.
They have both of them.
You get to choose your own adventure, really, I think is what that is.
Anyway, humans have been preserving food and other items for thousands of years.
I believe we started preserving things, especially food, right? Because you got to start with sustenance. Like that's our, in
got to survive.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sort of the first step is just eating and shelter. But I think this goes back to 12,000 BCE. So that's 14-ish thousand years ago.
Many pieces of lutefisk go back
12,000 known as lutefisk is unless they hang out with you. This is what is this? It's cod, right? Is it cod?
It's cod, and the reason you put it in lye and you bury it in the ground because when the winter months come and you are really, really hungry and you don't have anything else, you need something that keeps the bacteria and the fungus and the mold and everything else and other animals away from it. So you put it in a lye substance, and then you take it when you're ready to eat it. You take it out and then you clean it all off, and it's good to go. You can then boil it or whatever you want to cook it.
How have the Swedish people lasted this long eating something that animals literally won't eat? Wild animals are like, nope, screw that. I'd rather freeze to death. I'm not eating
and
that.
My mom loves it. It's the most foul thing you've ever seen.
That is amazing.
But all these things are so you can survive during the winter.
Yeah, I mean, that's just I think it's a different form of drying and salting, right? It's the same thing that we've been doing for, again, 14,000 years, which is drying stuff or you salt it to sort of get all the moisture out, which prevents bacteria from growing. And effectively, you get jerky. You get like meat or fish jerky. That is all from the same basic concept. We started figuring out how to smoke stuff sometime in there too, right? With fire. And
I think the drying, smoking crowd were much smarter than the lying crowd.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming lye is what you had. Yeah. So it was better than, not eating.
No, that's true.
And then at some point we added water to the mix, right? And we got into pickling.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that was more like 2000 BCE, give or take.
I like this more than you do. I like almost anything pickled.
I generally like most things pickled. It depends on what I'm eating it with. I don't necessarily want it solo.
Yeah.
But like, obviously pickled cucumbers, pickles, carrots, onions. Sure. That's great. Let me make a banh mi
with beets.
Pickled beets.
Yum.
Typically pretty good. Anyway, okay. So we kind of started with food and salt, and then we got into preserving with sort of more advanced means. So honey, I didn't know this. Like honey is such an amazing substance. It's antibacterial. It's effectively immortal. We've found honey in tombs that's 3,000 years old and still edible, which is crazy.
Still edible?
Still edible.
Who tested that?
It's you know what? If I was on that dig team, I'd be the first guy. I'd be like, as long as I'm pretty sure it's not going to kill me, I'll give it a go. I'd want to know reasonably sure. Put stuff in clay pots into caves, and stored stuff in there. We've done that for millennia.
And sealed the clay pots. We've found ways to seal the clay pots.
Yeah, you seal them with like wax or resin, like different ways you can do it. It's effectively like really early canning almost, right? We didn't get to canning until much later, 19th century, I think.
My grandmother used to can.
Used to can everything.
Oh no, she would can these preserves, these like jelly jam kind of things. She called them preserves, and they were insane.
I bet.
I know she gave us our allocation of the little can,
your allotment,
of preserved, whatever it was, the berries or whatever she had made. She would make a lot of different flavors. I know she meant that to last us the whole year round.
Didn't make it to the weekend.
The jars, I'm sure, were empty before she got to the door to say goodbye.
I feel like this is everyone's.
That stuff was so good.
Everyone's grandmother. My grandmother, Italian, would can. She had a big garden. She would can lots of things out of her garden and then put them down like in her cellar. But I was always afraid to go in there. I was never sure about that.
You were never invited in.
No, wasn't where I wanted to go. I mean, I would go in there, but I would just like look at them and be like, I'm mildly fearful of Grandma's cans. That didn't come out right.
No.
Come to think of it, now I think I was actually mildly fearful of Grandma's cans in more ways than one. But back it up. My point is, long before canning, we progressed from preserving food to preserving knowledge, right? Sort of this the next big chunk of stuff that I think we tried to preserve. And this I'd argue, started with writing. So when you had clay tablets or scrolls, anything from like sort of medieval times, I think we mainly started with the Bible. It was one of the first things where they started copying, and you had this job of copyists and monks, where they would just take the thing and then write the thing down and hope to do it exactly right. So you had multiple copies, of course, pre-printing press.
Sounds like a terrible job, by the way.
Oh man, does it sound just absolutely horrible?
But think about the other jobs in the Middle Ages that you could have gotten that were much, much worse. You probably were thrilled to be on copying detail.
Well, I feel like the monks too, they couldn't have been pro Gutenberg, right? These couldn't have been folks that were like, I don't know, maybe they were looking forward to getting out of the handwriting business, because what was next for them, right? They got into beer. So maybe they were actually pro Gutenberg.
The monks make beer?
The Belgian monks make beer.
I had no idea.
Right? The Trappists. We're preserving knowledge. We're starting to preserve artifacts. You start seeing more artifact preservation, and this is sort of the rise of museums, or the concept of sort of museums. Yeah. And then we have what I'd call the modern era of preservation. You get into refrigeration and freezing, where we started with ice and figured out that would keep stuff cold or keep stuff fresh for a long time.
Like ice boxes.
Yeah, literally cutting ice out of the ground and then preserving the ice through the summer if you can, so you can keep stuff cold in your cellar. Mm-hmm. Canning, as we mentioned earlier, that came way later. This is like 1800s. I think a big part of that was Napoleon, who just needed food. food, like sort of non-rotten food for war.
Hardtack. Are you familiar with this term, hardtack?
What a terrible name.
Yeah, imagine like a biscuit. Now bake it a few more times to get all of the moisture out of it.
Great.
And it's just hard as a rock.
Sure.
And it does not ever go bad because there's no moisture. It's just the flour. It's made with flour and water.
Okay.
Sometimes a little salt.
I mean, good news, it never goes bad. Bad news, it never goes good either.
Never was good. But you could survive on it if you were a sailor and you out at sea and you had nothing else. I mean, hopefully you kept with the hardtack, you had like some of Grandma's preserves.
Whenever I get into the hardtack, I want some of Grandma's cans with me at any time.
Okay. No more with Grandma's cans.
We got creative, right? I mentioned the monks earlier. We did start fermenting things, which is another form of preservation, especially with like yogurts and cheeses. Yeah. Of course, beer. Sure. The alcohol helps act as a natural preservative.
Sure.
So that's pretty incredible. And then like the I'll call the true modern era or bring us closer to today, just digital storage, which is this really interesting concept that I think we could spend 3 episodes on, where I find digital storage to be both easier for long-term preservation and harder at the same time because it's not a physical item. You sort of have to understand the digital nature and the risks that are involved there. Yeah. And then going forward, we have things that we think might work from a preservation perspective, like cryopreservation, right? Taking someone's head and freezing it. It's an actual business and thing where, they'll keep you at some, I don't remember what it is, couple degree Kelvin state so that you're completely inanimate.
I don't like being cold when I'm alive. I can't imagine I'd be fond of it when I'm dead.
Your brain's still working and you're just inside there being like, I need a blanket. Blink 3 times.
I want no part of this.
But the point is we've preserved things for quite some time, right? We started with food. We've got sort of interesting museums. I always would ask why, like I think obviously you carry some parts of culture forward when it comes to knowledge preservation. Certainly the scientific community has benefited greatly from this. It's the old Newton quote, standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Because you have people that came before you that did a bunch of things and you can build off of that. Like if we had to start anew, if I was born tomorrow with no library and no access to information.
Store of knowledge is certainly the most important thing that we store.
I would say it's probably the most important thing from our civilization for the human race is being able to compound that going forward.
Right.
And this preservation of knowledge is all a version of that, right? It's all interesting thing about culture because culture isn't necessarily moving you forward from a knowledge perspective. If anything, it's kind of persisting the past. I do wonder more times than I would care to admit, what does it look like if you mash all the cultures into one, right? If you sort of just have like a general humanity culture and not all these weird little sects that like to compete against one another, that seems to drive all sorts of strife, which is why I still think, I digress, but I still think Dean Devlin had it right. You just need a bunch of aliens to come to the planet. Then all of a sudden, I don't care that you're a different religion or skin color than me. You have 2 legs and 2 arms and 2 eyes. You are my friend. I want you to help me kill the other thing that's trying to kill us.
Why do we do this? Why do we preserve all this stuff besides knowledge? I get why we preserve knowledge. We're awfully full of ourselves thinking that future generations are going to be interested in our collection.
Well, yeah, of course, but we are full of ourselves. Yeah. If you accept the fact the next generation doesn't care about your stamp collection, then everything that you've been doing for the past 60 years has been a waste of time. So you just can't accept it.
But I think a stamp collection is cool because this was something that actually did something useful. It's like the barbed wire thing.
Well, let's draw a line here between museums and collecting because I think those are 2 different things.
Very similar.
Having stamps in one place to go see them, interesting, I guess. Having a bunch of people that have stamps on shelves that they're meticulously collecting over time,
less useful.
A little less useful, right? Like if it's not on display.
Many things start as collections. Arm & Hammer had an art collection.
Of course.
It became the Hammer Museum.
And I think that's great when they end up that way. But that is you playing in the NBA, right? That is the exception. Mm-hmm. Most people have spent 12% of their disposable income buying Beanie Babies for the last 20 years, and they have them in boxes in their basement. There's a couple buckets here. You get the knowledge bucket, which is us learning from our mistakes in the past and standing on the shoulders of giants. And you sort of have the culture bucket, which is like not knowledge, not necessarily not knowledge, but it's more of like these are the things that we've done for tradition's sake. Yeah. Holidays, sacred land. But I do think it's fascinating to think about the preservation of, how you actually preserve those things. We have them in museums. We have them stored online. We have pictures in books. We have libraries that you can go to. You have folks like the Internet Archive trying to scrape the entire internet and keep that in a collection so that people can see. Mm-hmm. It's all sorts of interesting things, which brings up a whole raft of questions around sort of ethical considerations of this, privacy, IP,
copyright violations.
The point is, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And then you've got a handful of people that do this work. I love the people that actually do this work. And then some people pay for it and you get a subscription to a thing, or there's donors and foundations that try to preserve it. Governments sometimes try to preserve some of these things.
It's paid for by viewers like you.
Right? That's what you hope. You hope enough people are interested in preservation of these types of things or the work that someone is doing that they'll write a check.
Yeah, when you go to the Barbed Wire Museum, there's no admission fee.
Yeah.
But if you want to make a donation, good on you.
I want us to go to the Barbed Wire Museum. I want to look around very excitedly, and then I want to say, hey, look, guys, what would it take to double? We want to get you at 4,800 kinds of barbed wire. What kind kind of number are you thinking? And I just want to watch the old guy there. Just like, do you think he's got a number already prepared? He's like, oh, well, I know a couple of collectors. I think for 10 grand we could get there. I'd write that check so fast. I would just call it the nonsense section, the little nonsense, the little Parker nonsense.
My friend Steve has in his garage the barbed wire he's collected.
It's been a race. I also love that there's a competing barbed wire museum in Nebraska, and the guys in Kansas really want to knock it off. They really want to get there. So this is how we've sort of done this classically. What I think is really interesting now, and the inspiration for this segment was that like there's all the stuff that clearly we'll collect because we can, right? We've talked about some of that here, whether it's the penis museum or the toilet museum. It's like, okay, we're going to collect it. We have these other things that you kind of collect just because you can, right? Like airplane graveyards are a great example. Yeah. You get a parts bin out of that. So some of those parts get scavenged. Sometimes the planes are just not economically viable for any purpose. They'll just leave it there. Maybe they'll bring it back into service. Sure. Maybe they cut it up and recycle it.
Recycle the aluminum, recycle the titanium. Yeah. Things that are in it. Or things
that are in it that are super useful. And we have these. So there's a couple of these in California. There's some not too far from where you and I live. Yeah. You've got them in Arizona. The Southwest is a great place for this because it's relatively low humidity. Temperatures aren't going to destroy the materials that are on them.
The only thing they're going to get is dusty.
Yeah, they pretty much get dusty and some UV. Those are like your two biggest concerns. Yeah. Then you've got like the real weird oddities where like people preserve their wedding cake, which I find bizarre. Yeah. And I guess they're supposed to, on their first anniversary, they're supposed to break it out and eat it.
You break it out after a year and you have the rest of the piece of cake that you have saved.
I just don't understand why. Just get a fresh cake. Why would you not want to, like, marriage is hard enough. Why do you have to bring in old shitty food to
bad cake?
Why do you have to bring in an old bad food to it, right? Like just get a new cake. You've earned it. You made it a year. Shouldn't the 1 year anniversary be cake and not old cake, not freezer burnt cake? I digress.
I think you should graduate. The 1 year anniversary should be pie because everybody knows pie is better than cake.
See, I'd get onto that. I'd totally get onto that. Yeah. But like, for example, apparently Queen Victoria's wedding cake from 1840 has been preserved for almost 200 years.
How can that be? How do they know? How have they not run out of pieces of that cake?
Well, no, I think they're like 2 slices that they just kept. My hunch
How do you know that somebody in like 1940 didn't go, oh, you know what we could do? We'll make this cake. We'll say it was Queen Victoria's wedding cake from 1840. I mean, how do you know it's not a forgery? How do you know it's not fake?
I'm assuming there's some provenance to it. I'm assuming just every night Betsy went to eat it and she's like, not tonight. I'm a little full. Just not tonight. Just stuck around. I'm assuming that thing just tastes like dust and regret is all it could taste like, but I don't really know.
I'm sure.
This one is a little more surprising. And I did not know this until I was researching for this segment. We apparently have kept Einstein's brain. His actual brain.
Without his permission.
He
didn't sign off and say, hey, whatever you do, keep my brain.
We have to do a show on this. So after his death in 1955, the pathologist that performed the autopsy on him just decided to keep it.
And how did he keep it? Did he keep it frozen? Did he keep it in some way?
It seemed like it was kept very poorly.
Did he pickle it? What did he do? We talked about various ways. Did he dry it out like a jerky? How exactly did he keep the brain?
Man, there is no better brain food than some Einstein brain jerky. Let me tell you. The days we got a really hard episode coming up, I just snap into some Einstein brain jerky.
Lutefisk brain. That's what he's got.
All of a sudden, that lutefisk is sounding pretty good. I'm thinking about the Einstein brain jerky. I don't fully know, but the TLDR is this thing went through some not great conditions. Like it was kept in his car trunk at one point.
Oh my gosh.
It was in like his closet. Yeah.
It's meat. It would spoil.
It might have been encased in something. It might have been encased in like some plastic. At one point, it was cut up into about 240 pieces and then just distributed and stored in jars all over the planet, which is bizarre to me just to think about as a concept.
I'm looking right now. It says at one point it lived in a Tupperware container inside a beer cooler in Wichita, Kansas.
This was arguably one of the best brains of our modern times.
And we sent it to Wichita.
And the way we show praise is we cut it up and sent it to Wichita. Okay. When you say it that way, I feel like now we're really getting some bad letters from Kansas. But hey, who's keeping track? Look, the point is we preserve some really gnarly things. Even like, think about humans. Yeah. Now, we think roughly speaking, there's about 117 billion people that have ever walked the planet. About 8 billion are alive now, which means there's been about 109 billion people that are no longer
fertilizer
arguing on Twitter, basically. They're not all buried, right? You assume, roughly speaking, probably somewhere between half to 2/3 of them were buried in some way. Okay. That means there's been 55 to 75 billion people who have been buried throughout human history. Now, I wouldn't call that preserved. I would just say buried is not the same as preserved.
Sure.
But I do think it's notable to think about a place that I was one of my favorite places to visit, especially in Paris, is the Catacombs.
Yeah, sure.
Right? The Catacombs in Paris. There are 6 million people, remains of 6 million people in the Catacombs.
Not my choice of Paris destinations. I gotta be honest.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's super unique. I also think it just gives some great perspective to like how short our time here there is on the planet.
Have you ever shopped on the Champs-Élysées?
Oh, you're a Champs-Élysées guy?
Much more than a Catacombs person, for sure.
There are two kinds of people in this world.
For sure.
There's the Champs-Élysées shoppers, and there's the guys that go in the Catacomb.
Even just to stop and get a crepe. I'll do that instead. Long with Catacombs, you guys go on ahead.
I'll catch up. I will straight up bring a panini into the Catacombs. I don't care.
Ooh, Can you bring food in? That's disgusting.
I'm pretty sure they frown upon that. It is an incredible place. One of my favorite things about the Catacombs too. It's a bit of at least it used to be a bit of a walk where you're walking through the tunnels until you get to the Catacombs with the remains, and people are talking and chatting and doing their thing and whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And then you get to the remains, and it is dead silent. Like once you hit there, people are just like, it is this moment of awe where everyone's just like, oh, these were all people.
Yeah,
and it's just it's amazing.
Disney should automate it, and they should all break into song. When everybody gets quiet, they just all break into song like a choir.
I mean, careful. They're going to, and all of a sudden they're going to own some IP on the Catacombs.
All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Well, I've had a lot of windshield time, as you know. So this past week,
you've been driving.
A lot of driving. That is sort of the best time for me to binge listen to long form podcast content, which I don't think anyone does that better than the guys at Acquired. I've plugged them before here on the show, but they're fantastic. I finally got through most of their Rolex episode from earlier this year. It's a really great episode. It's a fascinating story. I'm not a watch guy. I'm not a Rolex guy, but it was a very interesting story, and just reminds me of how good they are at storytelling, especially through
6 hours of discussing a wristwatch.
It's not just it's the history of how they got there. It is really pretty fascinating. It's one of those businesses that's privately held by a foundation, so there's like very little information on it. Wow. It's really pretty neat. I really do think you would enjoy it.
I love the show. I love Acquired.
Yeah, for those listeners that don't know Acquired, Jeff and I both love it. It's basically two guys who tell the stories and strategies of great companies. It's a format that I've used as inspiration for Nonsense, but instead of two smart guys that tell stories about great companies, we have one smart guy, and we both think we're him. So how about you? What have you seen this past week?
This is an oldie, but every time I come across it on TV, I have to watch it to the end. Since it's summer baseball season, I have to recommend it to you if you haven't seen it. It is the 2011 movie Moneyball. Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman telling the story of Billy Beane's 2002 season with the Oakland A's. Sort of taken from the Michael Lewis book of the same name. They take some liberties. Sure. Billy and his staff attempt to assemble a baseball team on a lean budget by employing data analysis to select new players based on Bill James' search for objective knowledge about baseball. I'm not going to give away the ending, but to suffice it to say, if you follow baseball, you know they completely changed the game. The movie is an absolute delight. Moneyball on Amazon Prime Video now.
I don't want to be the guy to say, read the book, so I won't.
Wow, it is definitely me. That is the episode.
Wait a minute. Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. It's really terrible podcast from The Awful Company. This is on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, wherever you get your podcast from.
Nonsense Studios are guarded by Barkley the dog. Barkley's a rescued mutt, free and open source. Next time you're tempted to buy an inbred dog, a purebred dog, don't. Get a Barkley. You'll be so glad you did.
We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Well, at least one of us will be. Please join us.
It's me.
It's him. I mean, I am proud that I've been to the Penis Museum, but as it turns out, there's a Vagina Museum in London that we need to go see.
I've not seen the Vagina Museum. I haven't seen the Penis Museum either.
The problem with the
I haven't gone to any of the genital museums.
The problem with the Vagina Museum is the exit door says clit on it. It's really hard to find.
All right.
Like a lot of museums, especially like modern art museums, they'll have a sculpture in front.
Yeah.
The thing is, the sculpture in front of the Vagina Museum is just a guy in a boat.
Okay. I have to go.